Hi, I'm Sarah with One Big Happy Yarn Company, and joining me today is...
I'm Jenny Fish!
So today we are working on our Missouri Star crochet blanket. This is part of our make-along where Jenny has done a whole knit series, so you can watch those episodes up here. This is one of our make-along projects where knitter and crocheter friends can get together and make the same project. If you haven't yet, you want to stop by onebighappy.com and pick up a kit. We have lots of great color options, and I'm ready to dive in. I hope you're ready to dive in with me. We are working with Barocco Vintage, which is a great acrylic and wool blend with a little bit of nylon for strength, super washable. This is heirloom quality yarn, and it comes in hanks, it comes in twist hanks, so you're gonna wanna make sure that you wind them. You're gonna wanna use a ball winder and a yarn swift, or the back of a chair, or the hands of a friend to hold on to the yarn while you wind it into a ball. So those come in hanks. Now the crochet version of the blanket comes in 2 different sizes, but it's really easy to customize. Actually, both of them are pretty easy to customize size-wise. So if you wanted to do smaller squares and make blankets, or just do smaller squares and put those all together into a blanket, it's a lot of seaming, but it would be beautiful.
It would be gorgeous.
Yeah. So I'm going to start with my slip knot. That I always make that's adjustable by the tail. And that means that when I pull on the tail, the loop gets smaller. If I pull on the loop, the tail gets shorter. So I'll show you that again. That's my slip knot. We are using an H8 5mm hook. This is a hook from Boy, but whatever brand of hook you prefer. And I'm just going to tug that tail until it snugs up on my hook. It's not tight. You want it to be able to move around. It just fits very well around the neck of that hook. So every one of our squares is made the same way. So I'm going to walk you through that. We're going to start with a chain of 3. 1, 2, 3. Now this chain doesn't count as anything. It just exists to get our hook up to the top of the stitches that we're going to make. And then we're going to be working the entire blanket in my favorite stitch in the world, and that's a half double crochet. So it's halfway between a single crochet and a double crochet. And it starts like a double crochet, so you yarn over first. Then we're going to go back into that first chain, which is right above that little slip knot there. And then we yarn over again and bring up a loop. So far, just like a double crochet, right? But this is where we're going to finish it like a single crochet. We're going to yarn over one more time and pull through all 3 loops on our hook. See that?
That gives it like a meatier base.
Yeah.
Like a thicker base, or
and
it's more
and
structured.
It's shorter. Yeah. So in the matrix of the fabric, it actually forms not as dense a fabric as single crochet and not as loose a fabric as double crochet. So it's like that sweet spot halfway in between. So now we're going to do 2 more half double crochets into that same chain space. So yarn over into that chain space, yarn over and bring up a loop. There's 3, yarn over and pull through all 3. We're going to do that one more time. So, and I split my yarn. That happens. Take it out, start again. So this is part of why I like that slip knot that adjusts. See, it's gotten nice and open. It's made it easy to put all of these stitches in there. And then when you're done, you just go back and pull on that tail, and it tightens it right up. So now we've got 3 stitches because we did not count that chain that we started with. So now we're ready for the second row. I'm going to chain 2, turn the whole thing over. And now we're going to do an increase in the first stitch and in the last stitch. So right down here at the base of that chain is our first stitch. We're going to make sure that we go under 2 strands. See those? 1, 2. Yarn over and bring up a loop, and then pull through all 3. And then we're going to do 1 more stitch in that same spot. The next stitch just gets 1 stitch. So a half double in that one in the center. And then the last stitch of the row is here, and that's going to get another increase. So that's going to get 2 stitches. So unlike your squares where you started in the middle and decreased your way out, our crochet squares we're working from point to point. So we're going to start here at the bottom, increase till we get to the middle point, and then decrease until we get to the top. So then row 3.
And the way you increase is by doing 2 of those double crochets in 1 stitch?
Yeah, 2 half double crochets in the same stitch.
Okay.
Yeah, so nothing fancy, unlike with knitting where there are options for different kinds of increases, but we're keeping it pretty simple here with crochet. The same stitch, you're making the same stitch twice in the same place. So let's do that again. We chain 2, we turn, We're going to do half double in that very first stitch, and then another half double in that same stitch.
Okay, that makes sense.
Then we have 4 stitches left. We're going to half double in every stitch across until we get to that last stitch. 2, 3, last stitch is here. This one gets an increase as well. So there's the first one, and then one more in that same spot. And that's the pattern. So you're increasing in the first stitch. I'll chain 2 and show you that. So you're going to increase in that first stitch, you're going to work all the way across to the last stitch, and you're going to increase in that last stitch. And you're going to continue that way until you get to the halfway point. Now that'll depend on what size square you're making, and that's indicated in the pattern. So for our sample blanket, I went with 12-inch squares, and that was 28 rows. So 28 rows of increases got me to that center point. Once you've gotten to that center point, I'm just going to add one more row here while we chat, because if I don't, this will be a little too small to show you the decreases. Once you get to that center point, then you're going to start working decreases to bring it back down to the opposite point from where you started. Don't work with your tail. Jenny and I both run into that sometimes. Oops.
Yep, and sometimes I'll just put like a slip knot in the middle of my tail, so that way if I do grab it, I'll feel that knot.
Yep.
And then it's easy to pull out when I'm ready to weave in that end.
That is a great idea. All right, so we're going to say that that's the middle point of my square. I am going to, all right, I've got 4 rows. I'm going to chain 2 and turn. So the decrease rows start the same way. And then my decrease, I'm still doing half double crochet, so I have to start with that yarn over. But then where I anchor my stitches in the decrease, I got from doing amigurumi, like little stuffed toys, and it's called an invisible decrease. This is my favorite decrease. So if I look at these next 2 stitches, you can see the top strand. We're going to combine these 2 stitches. Now, normally you would go into the stitch, yarn over and bring up a loop. Then you'd have to go into the next stitch, yarn over and bring up a loop, and then complete everything. But that's really bulky. And if I do the stitch next to it, they don't quite look the same. They look different. That bothers me. The other way to do a decrease is to just skip a stitch. So you could just skip that first stitch and go to the next one. And then all the stitches that are next to each other would look the same. But then you have a hole. There's enough ways to see through your crochet fabric that you don't need to add an extra hole. Also, when you go to seam this up, that's going to make that hole even bigger. And so we don't want a big hole like that. So this decrease takes care of all of that. So we're going to yarn over first, and then I like to use the crochet hook as a hook for this. So I actually turn it this way, and I use it to hook under just that front strand. See that? And then I'm going to use it as a hook again and go under just the front strand of that second stitch. So now it looks like I've got 4 loops on my hook. I'm going to yarn over and pull through just 2 because those are the front strands of those 2 stitches. Now look at that, I'm back to the 3 that I need. I'm going to yarn over and pull through all 3. And that has anchored in 2 stitches, and that's pulled these 2 stitches down here together, but the body of the stitch looks exactly the same as all of its neighbors. And then you're going to half double crochet your way across to the last 2 stitches, and then we're going to do that same thing. So I'll show it to you again.
That's pretty smooth.
Yeah, it's that was a game changer for me when I learned that one, especially when you're doing amigurumi, which I'm sure we'll do a future tutorial on that, because those are like little stuffed animals. You want to avoid holes in your work as much as you can. So here we are, last 2 stitches here. I'm going to yarn over. I'm going to rotate that hook so I can use it as a hook under the first strand here, under the first strand here, those 2, yarn over and pull through both of them. Sometimes you split a stitch, that's okay. Nope, I still have one more strand. There it is. Then I'm going to yarn over and pull through 3 to complete the stitch. And so then you can see where it starts coming back in towards the point. So I'm going to do that until I get to the last row. So it's the same number of rows that you increase out, you're going to decrease back in. So I'm going to do the decrease, 1, 2, pull through both of those. Sometimes it doesn't want to. Just take your hook out and start again. Sometimes yarn has attitude. Sometimes you split it and you didn't even know. Don't fight with your work. Compromise.
I tend to show who's boss. But it's like with my kids. Half the time I win, half the time I don't.
You just have to make the work think that it's winning when you're the one that's winning.
Aha.
All right. So the trick is when you get down to the last row, which I'm almost there, it's a little bit different than when we started. You're going to end up with 3 stitches. So I just did a decrease. Then there's 1. I'm going to do one more decrease here. And that leaves me with 3 stitches. And then the very last row, I'm going to chain 2 and turn. I'm going to skip that first stitch. I mean, I told you not to skip any stitches because it would make holes, but you're going to do it here. And then I'm going to do the decrease on the last 2. Because it doesn't really leave much of a hole here at the end.
Because this is at the very, very end. And this is going to be
tip.
in, when you seam it up, it'll be in the corner.
Yeah.
So you have that bulk from all the other stuff. It'll just tuck in there.
Yep, and so that's it. You're back to 1 loop on your hook. You can cut your yarn, then yarn over and pull through everything. And then I like to give it a nice tug. So now that sort of looks leafy, diamondy shaped, but it just needs a little block and it's a square.
Very cool.
So that is your solid colored block. You're going to need to make 4 of those. Those are in the outer corners of the blanket. And then you're going to need to make 4 2-color blocks. And those look like this. So you're going to do your increases and then you're going to switch colors to make your decreases. Let me show you how to do that. And yes, this is another, those of you that have done tutorials with me before, it's another jellyfish project because there's lots of tails to weave in, but that's all right. I actually like to leave really long tails when I start and when I end with this one because I use them for seaming. So let me show you how to do the 2-color block. Stitch markers are your friend. Always have them because if you have to put your work down, you can just put a stitch marker in that live loop and lock it and then it can't unravel. And then you just give that stitch marker a little tug, you can find the stitch that you need to start with again. So for this, I worked all the way to my middle row and then I stopped. But when you change color, you usually want to change with the last yarn over of a stitch. So I'm actually going to take this last stitch out so I can show that to you. And I'm going to yarn over, go into that stitch, yarn over and bring up a loop. And then here's where I change color for this. Bring over my new color, just holding a loop. I'm going to grab it and pull it through. So now this stitch has finished. The whole body and the top of it matches all of its neighbors, but the loop on my hook is in the next color. That potential for the next stitch is ready to go in the new color. And I'm going to chain 2. I'm going to use both my tail and my working yarn here. I'm going to chain 2. That locks that tail in place. Now I can drop it and ignore it. And then you start your decreases just the way that you did before. Yarn over under the front strand of the next 2 stitches, pull through both, yarn over, and pull through 3, and then you work your way across. So it's really that simple. Once you've got the increase rows and the decrease rows down, you're just changing colors at the very end of the last increase row so that when you start the first decrease row, you're in that new color. And then you work your way across. Do your decrease at the other side, and then repeat that decrease row until you're back to 3 stitches and finish off that. Oh, nope, that's where the decrease is. If you get to the end and you only have 1 stitch, you got to go back 1 because you got to do the decrease. There's that decrease again. And that's it. So that's how you get your 2 color squares. You're going to need to make 4 of those. So at this point, you'll have 8 squares. Now we get to do the 3 color squares. I think these are so fun because I added like a little blip in the middle because I like how it transitions.
I was looking at that. I noticed that. I was like, oh, that's pretty cool.
So let me slide it over here so you can see it. So it's not as clean a transition. Like it's not a hard edge like with Jenny's knit blanket. And I kind of like this like clasped transition through here. So intarsia and crochet is a little bit different because knit stitches stack up perfectly lined up. Crochet stitches are off by a half stitch in every row. If you think about like a cinder block wall, every row is halfway in one direction or the other, and that's how crochet stitches are. They don't perfectly line up. So I played a little bit to make that transition part of like more of a design element. And I really like how that works.
It's beautiful. I really like it too.
Thank you.
Especially with the colors that you picked. Because the colors next to each other, they flow. They flow. Yes, perfect word. They flow.
Yeah.
I like that a lot.
So I'm going to use, so the 2 colors in the blanket are really close to each other in value. So it's sort of, it's very like a very soft transition. I'm going to use 2 really high contrast colors here so you can really see it because it's a little bit different than almost anything you've done before. You're going to start, and I let you start with the colors, and then you get to go into autopilot with the single color at the end. So we start with our chain of 3, and we do our half double back into that first chain with the first color. Then we're going to start another half double crochet into the chain, bring up a loop, and change colors. But we're also going to hold on to the old color because when we come back here in the next row, we're going to need to transition back to this color, and half double crochet stitches are kind of tall, and you're going to have to bring that color up. You don't want to have to bring it up too far. You don't want to have to bring it up across 2 rows of stitches. So this way we're only going to have to bring it up over 1 row of stitches. So I'm going to yarn over with my old color, and I'm going to grab my new color. And then I'm going to pretend that those 2 things are the same thing. See how I've got them both caught in the throat of my hook? And I'm going to bring them both up through all of those loops. And now I have 2 loops on my hook, the 2 different colors. I am going to drop the old color behind my work. I'm going to drop my tail behind my work. And now I could just keep working with my new color. I'm going to yarn over. I'm going to go down into that 3rd chain, yarn over and bring up a loop, and then complete the stitch. I know this feels funny because that's got that little bit of orange over there, but it all works out in the end. We're going to chain 2. I'm going to do 2 stitches. I'm going to do the increase in that first stitch. 1, 2. And now you can barely see that little bit of orange that traveled over the top of that stitch. Now I'm in the middle stitch. I'm going to start with my current color, bring up a loop, and now I've got to use both my current color and my next color, which is down here. So I'm going to bring that up and hold it together. See how it's coming across the front of my work? I'm holding it together with my current color, yarn over with both, and pull through all 3 loops. See that? Now I can drop my old color. I'm only working with the orange now, and I'm going to do 2 half double crochets in that last stitch. So your increase pattern stays the same. It's that color transition that happens in the middle. So I'm going to chain 2. I'm going to turn my work, do my increase, and here's something that my fingers began to recognize when I was working on this. The top of this stitch feels thicker than the other stitches because it's got both of those strands. This is the last stitch that you're going to work in your current color before you transition.
Ah, so it's like a textural reminder.
Yes, but you can also see it because it's got both colors and because the new color that you're working on is right after that stitch. So I'm going to do one more stitch in my old color. Then I'm going to bring the new color up across the front, like that. Hold it together with my current color. Nope, I'm not going to do that. Don't do that. You have to actually start a stitch first. Don't get ahead of yourself. I'm going to start the stitch, then I'm going to bring that color up. So you have to have 3 loops on your hook before you do this. Then yarn over and pull through all 3. Then you're going to drop your old color and move on to working with just your current color. There's
It
one
really
more.
reminds me of when you're working your tail, you know, like when you do that 1 or 2 first stitches with your tail, like the technique of having the 2 strands of yarn representing 1 stitch.
Yeah. So it's a little, you're going to have to put your brain on it a little bit. But, all right, so here's those 2 colors. This is going to be the last stitch in this color by itself. Start the next one. Bring the new color up, use them both, drop the old color, move on with the new color. So it's going to take you some practice to get used to it, but once you do, you're not going to have to think about it for long. By the time you get through with the first square, you'll be good to go. So you're going to continue this way, the same number of rows that you worked in your other squares, depending on what size blanket you're making, until you get to the halfway point. So if it's that 12-inch square, it's 28 rows. If it's the 8-inch square, I think it's 17. Double check your pattern. Your pattern will tell you. Then I move on to my next color, and I keep going. And so you can really see it in these 2 high contrast colors. You can really see that transition. Let me just finish this increase, and then I'll put it down so we can take a look at it. Yeah, you can see how they jog back and forth across each other. But it almost, for anybody that's a weaver out there, it kind of reminds me of clasped weft weaving, where it's like a dance between the colors, and I really like how it comes out. So you're going to keep going that way until you get to the midpoint. Then you're going to change colors to start your decreases for the second half, and your pattern will indicate which one of your colors you're going to use for that. You're going to make 4 of these. Then you're going to flip these colors. You'll start with this color and end with that color in each row, and you're going to make 4 of those, so you have 16 squares all together. Remember, you're going to need 4 that are 2 colors. You're going to need 4 that are a single color, and there it is. And then you'll need 4 in this color order with the 3rd color on top, and 4 in this color order with the 3rd color on top. So get these 16 squares put together, and then you'll want to come back to join me for episode 2 when we seam it all together and put on a border. I hope you're having fun with this project. I really love this make along. I love when Jenny and I do projects like this. We sort of approach it in our own little worlds, but it's always funny to me how when we come back to film our tutorials, how similar they are.
Yeah, it is. It's fun.
It's just our brains really do work along similar paths. So it's always fun to be on set with you and to make stuff like this. So if you haven't yet, you want to be sure to stop by One Big Happy and pick up a kit in any one of these gorgeous colorways. And don't forget that your knitting friends can knit along with Jenny Fish in her tutorials, which you can watch here. It's always fun to be able to make along with another crafter. We look forward to seeing you in episode 2 when we put all of this together. Happy crocheting!